Hello, I'm going to show you how to connect to the Click PLC trainer and the software we're going to use for programming it. On my laptop here, I actually have two of them. This C with a little arrow on it, that's the Click programming software. Uh, Actually, what I have is the latest version and then one that was prior to it. Well, the latest version is version 2.6. So when you see that, we're going to double click on that to open it up. You can see that this background here is what we're actually going to be using to program it with. So in order to do this, we're going to have to connect to the PLC, or we can start with a new project without being connected, but I find it a little bit quicker and a little easier for us if we are already connected to the PLC. So at this point, what you're going to want to do is get your Click trainer, set it on the bench near you, get an Ethernet cable and plug it into the Ethernet port on the Click PLC, and then plug it into one of the ports that's on the bench for Ethernet. And once you do that and the PLC is turned on, all you got to do is click Connect PLC, and you should have a window like this that pops up. Now, you might have multiple PLCs listed here, and depending on how many people are using them, how many people are on the Ethernet. You could have up to at least 12 of them here. As you can see right now, I've got two of them showing up for my Ethernet little network here. And you got what is called an IP address. Now this is kind of important. So what you want to do is take a look at the trainer, because on the trainer somewhere we should have an IP address, and make sure that this address that you want to connect to matches the one that you are using. Mine that I'm going to use is 10.80.40.20. Notice it tells me that it's in run mode, and it also tells me that the status is good. In other words, I can connect to it. So once I've chosen that, all I have to do is click connect. This window pops up and it asks you, do you want to read from the PLC? In other words, if you want to see what the project is or what the software is in there, or do you want to not read what's in there? And for our purposes, we're going to start new, so we don't care what's in the PLC for a project. So click on this one down here and then click OK. And you can see that disappears. Now over here you can see it says that I'm online, and it tells me that the PLC is in run mode, which is fine for what we want to do. Now this is all for Lab 700 for automated processes. So what we want for this lab are two inputs. One is a start button, the other is a stop button. And then we have two outputs, which are a red pilot light and a green pilot light. So in this rung one, column A, you can go down here, and I'm going to use a normally open contact, and there's a symbol for it. Click on that, little window pops up, it tells me what it is. In this case, it's a normally open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the address for this, and the one that I've got it wired to on my PLC is X001. Notice that the check mark has turned green, so that tells me that it's a good address. And I'm going to click, hold it, let's go back one. We're going to use X002 because that is my start button. I want to put that first. Okay. Now you saw all the work I did for that one. How about if I just double click on this, and you can see it does give me a normally open contact. So it's a little bit faster. And this time I want to use X001 because I know that that is the address for my stop button. So I'm going to click OK. Now that's there. Over here, you can see all the way over here in the AF column after this bar, this is where I place my outputs. And I want to put in an internal relay. So again, I know it's an output. I know it has to be a coil. So I can click this. click and you can see it pops up, asks me for an output. And our very first coil in the addresses is C1. C stands for coil. Click OK, and there's C1. Now to finish this, and this turns out to be just a start-stop circuit, I need around my start button to put in some kind of memory circuit, or I need my seal in. So at this point, I'm going to hold down the control key. You see that blue arrow showed up. I'm going to push my down arrow key, my right arrow key, and then my up arrow key. So what I did is I'm creating a secondary current path. And I want to put in here one of the contacts from my coil. So that's going to have the same address, C1. I'm going to click OK. So here's my start, here's my stop, here's my internal relay, here's the contact for my internal relay to seal in around my start button. Now this is a little different than you've seen before. Usually we have the stop button before we have our start button. The reason they do the switch in here, or change the order of the start and stop, is because with the PLC, it goes down and it scans the first rung from left to right, and it's looking to see what is true or on and what is false. So in other words, it'll come down to this very first rung, start scanning across, and if X002, which is my start button, is pressed, it will now go to X001, and if this is true or has continuity, the capability of continuity, then it's going to go over and it's going to check C1, which would be energized, and then that's going to close this contact and seal it around my start button. So it's a way to speed up the scan process, because if the push button isn't pressed, it'll go to the very next one. In other words, it doesn't care if X001 is open or closed. It'll go to the next one. Okay? Well, I've got to turn on my two pilot lights, so let's put a contact here. I want it normally closed. If I double click, I'm going to get another normally open. So I'm going to go down here where the key says F3 and shows a symbol for normally closed. You can see that when I do that, it says normally closed here. And again, these are all going to be contacts that are connected to or related to my internal relay. So I'm going to click OK. And run 3, I need another. In this case, it's going to be C1, so I can just double click, normally open. So there's my C1 for that. Over here, okay, that's all these rungs require. I need a red pilot light. So I'm going to double click this. Bit memory address, in our case, it's going to be Y001. Back that up a little bit. And click OK. And then the one below that, my green pilot light, Y2. Notice I didn't put the zeros in this time. Before I put Y001, well, now I just put in Y2, and I'm going to click OK. And notice that the PLC software knows that it is capable of at least being 3 digits long, so it automatically puts in the placeholders, so it automatically goes Y002. So even if I wasn't putting them in other words, if I would have just made this Y1, it would have put in the Y001. And the same with the X's up here as well. Now to finish the instructions, I need in this rung, which would be rung 4, I need to put in a program control, which in this case is our end statement. Okay, notice I just clicked on it with the left mouse key, drug it up here and put it in place. Now, I know what this does, but somebody coming along that doesn't know what X2, X002, and X001 are may have a hard time understanding what this does. So the very next thing we need to do is probably label these things so we know what we're working with here. So I'm going to start with X002. I double click on it, I get this normally open contact symbol. In other words, just like I was trying to put it in again. But this time I'm going to click on this little square over here. Okay? So I know that I used X001 and X002. I want to go to edit mode on this. And this is my address picker. And what I'm going to do here for X001, I'm going to make this my stop push button. Just below that, that's going to be my start push button. Notice I use uppercase letters. They show up better, so you always want to use those. So those are my inputs. I also want to put in my outputs. And again, we are only using two. Y001 is going to be my red pilot light. Y002 is my green pilot light. Okay. One thing we have not tried to label yet are my C's. I'm going to click on C here. And again, we're only using one internal relay. So it's going to be CR1 for control relay 1. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click OK again. And this one I don't need open anymore, so I'm just going to close it. And you can see I've got a start push button. I've got a stop push button. I got control relay 1. All the contacts that are associated with this are given that same label, CR1. And over here for my outputs, I've got the red pilot light, I've got the green pilot light. If you wanted more information, so let's do that with this here. Let's do it with CR1 up here. I could also go in here, and again, we're going to go to edit mode. And I did put this in for a nickname, but you can put in an address comment, and I'm going to put internal relay. So now when I click OK, and click OK again, I'm going to close this. Notice nothing changed here, but that's because we need, notice I got nicknames, I don't have address comments. If I click here, there's my address comment. So now I know it's an internal relay. That internal relay is CR1, and its actual address is C1. Notice that it also put that information on all my contacts here as well. So whatever you change in one spot, it will change anything that is associated with it. Okay, hope that made sense to you. This should help you with creating your program. Once you have it created, have your instructor look at it, and if everything looks good, he'll help you with downloading this to the PLC. Okay, thank you for listening. This video is done.